The state of Kansas owes your child's public school more money. That's what the Kansas Supreme Court decided this last week. But the devil's in the details, and angry lawmakers could take the fight over school funding to a whole new level. Will they come up with a solution in time to satisfy the court, or will they defy the court and refuse to do anything? And another mass shooting, one of the deadliest in our nation's history, this time at an open-air concert. Already the national debate over guns, mental health, and security is raging. Will you see changes the next time you go to a concert here in Kansas or stay at a hotel? That's what we're talking about on Kansas Week, starting right now. Kansas' newest formula for financing public education is unconstitutional. Good evening, I'm Pilar Pedraza. Welcome to Kansas Week. That is what the state Supreme Court ruled months after many expected the ruling to come down. But much of what they said was no surprise to those who've been watching this lawsuit for years. Earlier this year, Kansas lawmakers put an additional $488 million into public schools over a 2-year period. The court now says that's not enough to adequately educate your child, saying the state failed to provide about a quarter of public school students with basic math and reading skills. But the ruling didn't say what would be enough. Lawyers for the schools behind the lawsuit say the state should double what it added to the education funding pot. The court also reopened the question of whether Kansas is making sure students in both rich and poor districts get the same chance at a quality education. This after lawmakers changed how Kansas handles local property taxes that go to schools. While Democrats applauded the ruling and welcomed the chance to try again, Governor Sam Brownback and Republican legislative leaders criticized the Kansas Supreme Court's decision. Brownback saying, quote, "The court should not substitute its decision for that of the legislature." And here to help us talk about all of this, we have today Representative Brandon Whipple, Democrat from Wichita, Representative John Whitmer, Republican from Wichita, and Travis Mounts, news editor from the Times-Sentinel papers. Lots of stuff there, but let's start with the basics. This is a huge ruling, but there are some pretty big issues if anything is going to happen. And I know, John, you've been chomping at the bit to raise kind of your first one. You were texting me almost as soon as the ruling came down.
Does this surprise anybody? I mean,
no.
I think we all knew what the court was going to say. It doesn't. I wasn't surprised. I doubt many of my colleagues on either side of the aisle were surprised. What we're going to do about it depends on who you ask. I'm curious to hear what these two have to say. It's par for the course. The question will be, for those of my colleagues that voted for the largest tax increase in Kansas history, are you willing to step up to the plate and do it again? And that's really the question.
Well, and that's what we were kind of talking about is the only way to come up with this money. You guys have been through the budget battles the last few years. Kansas doesn't have a bunch of money sitting in a bank account it can hand out. The only way to do it is to raise taxes. That's a pretty big fight, Brandon.
Yeah, and I'm not sure really where they're looking to get the money, but I will say that it is no surprise that this is unconstitutional. I thought it was very strange when we sat at the, I sat on the floor and people were voting, and you hear what's called the explanation of votes. And that's when members go up and they say, I vote for this because of this. The bill, people who've been following educational policy for a long time, there's 2 points that we look at. Does it put enough money into education? The current bill doesn't fund it up to 2009 levels, which means that there's nothing you can purchase at 2009 levels right now. So to think that education costs the same as it did in 2009, we would assume it would cost even more, but they wouldn't even put it at 2009 levels. And then a second point that people look at is the money spread around enough? Are people in my district getting the same amount of resources as people in the richest districts in Kansas? And when we saw the explanation of votes, you had smart people go up there and say, hey, I'm voting yes on this to move it forward, but I admit it's not constitutional. I actually went up and at the end of probably about 5 or 6 legislators and said, I haven't heard one person who's voting for this say, hey, this is a constitutional bill. Not one person said, I'm voting for this because it fixes the problem and it's constitutional. And that's why I voted against it, because if it's not good enough for the Constitution, it's not good enough for my vote. And then as soon as I did that, one of the guys on your aisle actually went up and said, no, Brandon, this is constitutional, and I'll be the guy who says it. And it takes a lot for me to, say off his Facebook page and put an article and say, well, do you still believe that? But either way, to answer your question, no, I don't think that it is any surprise. We are going to have to do some real surgery with the budget, some real policy maneuvering to figure out, well, how do we not only fund essential services in our state, but also make sure that our Kansas kids get the best education that they can.
Yeah. Well, this is no surprise for those of us who've been following it. Especially, we're not, as journalists, we're not surprised at lawmakers' reactions across the spectrum, from the diehard Democrats that are saying, yes, this is the way to move forward, and we've got to put a bunch more money in here, and at the other end, the conservatives that are saying it's time to defy the courts and cause a constitutional crisis because we can't deal with this anymore. We've all heard this before, but from the public's perspective, I know a lot of people across the state were happy to see more money going to schools this year. Are they happy with this ruling? Or are they concerned that this is going to jeopardize what they've gotten?
I think the majority of Kansans right now are glad to see some extra funding for schools, in part because of the key role that schools play in so many communities, whether they're large or small, especially the types of towns that we're covering, these suburban rural districts. In my newspaper groups are towns from like Goddard and Hayesville down to Conway Springs, Argonia, Cheney, a wide variety of schools. But those schools play a key role in every community. And so they want them funded, they want them staying open, they want them doing a good job. I think voters did show they were ready for some more money to be spent with the gains that moderate Republicans and Democrats made in the elections last year. I think that is as clear of a sign from the public as anything. I really haven't heard any negativity about this ruling from our readers. It has come from, most of the reaction has been from the political side. I think readers in general, I think the public is just tired of this. They would like to see some resolution to this, know that their schools are going to be funded adequately, and be able to move on from this. I mean, this is about 20 years of back and forth, and there's fatigue.
Yeah.
But again, I come back to the election results. I think said, take care of our schools, please.
Yeah.
See, and I'll push back a little bit on that. I represent a large part of the area that his papers serve, and I was reelected with 65% of the vote. And I think that the schools have plenty of money. I think part of the problem is how they spend their money. You've got the Shawnee Mission School District that's just now kicking ground and starting a $20 million aquatic center. Now, I don't know, the last time I checked, aquatic centers at $20 million is not money in the classroom. And I think this is the primary frustration. And let me finish. I think that is the primary frustration. You have 7 unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats, politicians, who have just tried to usurp the authority of the elected legislatures. If the justices want to dictate education funding, they should run for the House or the Senate. And that is the frustration that we have, is that you have justices who want to determine the appropriation process. They have absolute authority, and I respect their ability to say whether or not it's constitutional. No. Where I draw the line is for them to say we need to spend X. They do not have the appropriation process.
They have not done that. The last 2 rulings, they have not said we need to fund X. In fact, they very carefully, in some of the complaints that I have heard from lawmakers has been that there hasn't been. How much do we put in? That was the biggest complaint I heard from lawmakers last year in the State House was they didn't give us any guidance. How much is enough? We don't know.
But if you read between the lines, we know full well what they're doing. They're dancing around actually giving us a dollar figure because they know they can't. But essentially what they're saying is, you need to put in more. And if you ask Alan Rupp, the attorney for the plaintiffs...
Oh, the schools, of course.
Yes.
It's their job to say, well, this is how much we think we could get.
But then again, if you ask him how to pay for it, remember what his answer was. I don't care how you pay for it.
Well,
so what do we do? What
in all
hospital
To
do we
continue
close?
as
In all
devil's
fairness.
advocate, it's not his job to care.
No, but
it's
what
your
hospital
job.
do we close?
This is
What
a tough place to
prisoners-
be
what
seated,
prison
but I
do
want
we
to jump in
close?
on
Do we
this, if you
shut
don't
down?
mind, John.
No,
Thank
not
you,
at all.
thank you. Really tough seat to be seated in between these guys, especially on my first time being here. Listen, we all took an oath to uphold the Constitution. This is the process. The process is we put a bill. The Constitution says you have to educate kids appropriately. I mean, that is not obviously the exact language, but that's how normal people see it.
Yeah.
And normal people say, enough is enough. Stop pointing fingers, stop blaming people, because my third grader will never get third grade back. So during this process, if that third grader is in school and their third grade education is not as good as it should be because we are unconstitutionally funding education, then that person's going to fourth grade now unprepared, going to fifth grade unprepared. It's never been a more important time in our economy, in our state's history, than making sure that our kids are properly educated. Because we're not competing with just Missouri anymore. It's a global economy. And right now we need to make sure, that our kids are prepared for that. To say, well, we don't know what the number is, and a court didn't give us the number, okay, I understand that. But the last time they ruled it constitutional was 2009. So if you know that milk doesn't cost the same as it did in 2009, and that education is not going to cost the same in 2009, but the price tag in 2009 was constitutional then, and you don't fund it up to 2009 levels, then you can't turn around and say, oh my goodness, I'm so surprised that the funding wasn't enough.
But if you're spending money in areas, don't get me wrong, I'd be all for that if the money was going into the classroom. But when you've got districts that are spending exorbitant amounts of money in areas that are not going into the classroom, that's where I draw the line. When
Well,
you've
and
got
that's an
superintendents making hundreds of thousands
That's an
of
argument
dollars,
that's going to continue.
that's my frustration.
That's an argument that we've been hearing in the news business for years from both sides.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing we haven't touched on yet is what will be the public's reaction if the court does shut down schools in
If
the
they
fall
even have the
next
authority
year.
to do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
that's in dispute
talking
too.
about the court shutting down schools, timing, that is one of the most interesting notes about this ruling. The court heard oral arguments in July, later than many had expected, and took more than 3 months to put this decision together. Now, the court has told lawmakers they have the rest of this school year to fix the problems it sees in the formula. Sort of. Schools across the state are already spending the extra money lawmakers sent their way this year, even as the court says lawmakers need to cut a bigger check. At the same time, the justices inserted a deadline into their ruling. Kansas has to have a solution to its school funding debate by June 30th of next year, or else. The unspoken threat being, or else schools will not open their doors next fall because they won't have any funding. In order for that to happen, lawmakers have to have a new formula in place, though, by April 30th. That's the deadline to file paperwork with the court before the next hearing on May 22nd. And that's a problem because April 30th is only 10 days after lawmakers get their annual estimate of how much money Kansas expects to get for the next fiscal year. Lawmakers usually wait until after getting that estimate to begin putting together major budget bills, which this will be. That is no longer an option. Even if lawmakers get right to work when they go back to Topeka in January, finding a coalition willing to raise taxes or make the cuts needed to add more money to education, in an election year no less, will be very hard at best. And we were talking about this before the show started, the difficulties of trying to do something like this in an election year. Added on to the time factor that we're dealing with, really the way the court ruling is written, 10 days between the consensus revenue estimate when the state knows how much money it has to play with, it has to work with, I should say not play with. I'm going to give the state the benefit of the doubt and lawmakers and assume they're not playing with tax dollars.
No.
We knew what you meant.
Yes, but 10 days between that and when they have to have something decided upon, we've all been there, they can't do it.
Well, it's interesting. Timing is, as you put it, and I think this also illustrates how political this court is.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, this court took 16 years to get the Carr brothers decision wrong. They took a little over 100 days to get this decision right. It took us over 114 days this last time. They spent hundreds of hours crafting this decision, the original bill, 87-page bill on the finance formula that they just determined to be unconstitutional. Now they want us to come back before April 20th is when we get the consensus revenue estimates. So they want us to craft a new bill that's going to carry anywhere between, say, a $400 to $600 million price tag without knowing what the budget is. And they want us to do it all within 10 days from April 20th to April 30th. I mean, that's just not reasonable.
I'm just going to jump in there. And this sounds bad as someone in my position. The legislature, and it doesn't sound bad to normal people who watch us, they're not known for getting things right without a deadline.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You give a deadline, and it gets a little bit better.
Yeah, normal people have to work their job, and they have to show up, and they have to do what's asked of them. The legislature without a deadline, really, in my experience, and I've been there for 5 years, has a hard time hitting marks without a deadline. Now, I agree, we still have to figure out the funding. But there will be smart people in a room, Democrats, Republicans, conservatives, moderates, progressives, in a room saying this is what it should look like. And hopefully we'll get those conversations started early. As you guys know, the funding bill this time around didn't come till very late in the session.
Yes.
We have days where we go in, and I disagree with this, but I'm not the speaker, so not much I can do except complain on Twitter, I guess. But we have days when we go in and we get a full day's pay, and we're just in, hear announcements, and we're out. We're in a crisis. This is a constitutional crisis. My kids, the kids I represent in my district, deserve to go to a good school. They deserve to make sure that their education holds up against the education of the kids in Colorado, holds up against the education of the kids in Missouri. Yeah. And if we're not starting on day one, making sure that our education policy is going to hold up to those who we're competing against, then really we have no business being there. No. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
And we may not have all the pieces that we need, but it doesn't mean that the legislature can't start working on this and at least try to make some headway on some points.
Yes.
If nothing has been accomplished until mid-April, that's a lack of effort, not anything else.
And I did hear some complaints about that this last time, that we waited too long to get started. And I've heard that in other budget years when we are having to set the 2-year budget, that waiting till April 20th is too long. And just because you don't know the numbers doesn't mean you can't figure out the structure. So I would say that's something we're going to have to look for. But one other question that is going to affect all of this that some have raised about the timing is, was it deliberate for the court to wait this long? The ruling came out the same week that Governor Sam Brownback headed to D.C. for confirmation hearings on his new ambassadorial post. While the debate over school funding in Kansas stretches back through several governors' administrations, many most associate Governor Sam Brownback with cuts to education funding. Throughout his administration, he has been a major opponent of raising taxes of any sort, showing his anger most obviously this last spring after lawmakers overrode his veto to raise income taxes and roll back a small business tax exemption.
And I think a number of people threw their hands up and said this is the only way to go. The unfortunate thing is it's a bad way to go.
What does this have to do with the Kansas Supreme Court's ruling that lawmakers aren't spending enough on education? Any attempts to put more money in will mean either raising taxes or cutting services. But now it won't be Sam Brownback with a choice of passing or vetoing the bill. This week, he headed to Washington, D.C. for a Senate confirmation hearing on his nomination as U.S. Ambassador for International Religious Freedom. The full Senate still has to vote on his confirmation, but leadership hasn't set a date yet. Most pundits expect the Senate to confirm him, meaning he'd resign as Kansas governor, leaving Lieutenant Governor Jeff Collier to oversee any new school finance struggles next session. And now I was started hearing about the Brownback effect, as many politicians have called it for me, on this 2018 election and on the bills that are being passed 2 years ago. The question is there really any change when we move from Brownback to Collier? Because everything that I have seen from Collier, from his voting history to the things that he has said, is that he is pretty much politically the same animal, and we can expect the same things from him.
I'll let you
Don't all talk at once.
I'll jump in on this.
one of them field that one first.
I don't know the lieutenant governor very well at all, but some of this may depend on how he feels the political winds are blowing through the state. You know, if he feels that standing his ground may cost him the governorship, he may become more flexible. I think just taking the temperature of the state and you know, thinking that you're doing it accurately could be key to this as well.
You know, and I have a different opinion. I do think taking a temperature, and really taking a temperature is somewhat code word for looking at a poll. And I don't think the journalist meant it that way. But if Courier commits himself to doing what's right, to doing what is going to come up with the results, one of the reasons why we're in this problem is we were worried about, or not all of us, but people were worried about who was going to get credit. You know, was it going to be Representative Trimmer with his amendments that ultimately failed, but I think would have made this bill constitutional, or was it going to be someone else? If the next governor wants to be successful at governing, I think that is he needs to look at what is going to be successful in policy. And normal Kansans, they're not keeping political score. They want to know, you know, are the opportunities at their schools still there for their kids?
And that big question of, are my schools going to be open next fall? I mean, I'm already hearing that from friends and neighbors, from students, from fellow teachers who are like, I'm tired of this every year not knowing. Yeah. It's this round and robin, and it kind of is, several of you have mentioned already, everybody's tired of it. It's been going on for a long time.
Well, and if kids aren't in school, parents are going to get very unhappy because their lives are being messed with directly, and their patience will run very short. And I have a feeling that, I mean, right or wrong, the Republicans will probably take the blame for that if it goes longer, just because, you know, they're the ones that want to see less money. You know, the Democrats are more willing to raise taxes to put more money in. Again, I mean, that's just the clash of the philosophies. Mm-hmm. But you know, when parents are just figuring out, what do I do with my kids? I don't have daycare. I can't afford daycare. You know, the party that appears to be blocking progress will be the one that takes the blame.
Well, just to jump in real quick, remember, we had a really good school funding formula. We had one of the best formulas in the country. Instead of, we didn't
Obviously
fund it.
Not everybody agrees, but
we didn't fund it correctly, and then the governor came and had this great idea that we're going to go to block grants. So remember, the school ruling isn't about the old funding formula that was found constitutional and just was underfunded. It was about, let's do block grants for a couple of years, and the governor meant in his State of the State, this was going to be temporary. And then the legislature couldn't get it together and put in, you know, an improved, modern plan to replace the old plan. So we're still on block grants, and that's what this is about. Is we could have tweaked the old formula, but instead they threw it away, and then we have block grants.
We're pretty much on the old formula.
Yeah, I was going to say, realistically, looking at this formula, looking at the block grants, look at the old formula. This formula is closer to the old formula than the block grants. Although you're right, it did retain some traits of the block grants that folks who oppose the block grants are definitely opposed to.
My point is, we didn't need to move from the old formula, but they did. So if people are looking, why is this happening? It was because a politician in Topeka said, let's scrap what's working and start over.
Well, big surprise. Everything that we're talking about here is happening because a politician in Topeka has said something. As difficult as solving school finance in Kansas is, I'd like to turn to an even more somber topic now. The mass shooting in Las Vegas. It happened shortly before midnight Sunday, but will continue to be heard throughout the nation for months to come. And with similar events in the past, it's igniting a debate that could end with change to your life. 59 people dead, including the shooter. More than 500 others hurt after police say this man opened fire from a hotel room window overlooking an outdoor music festival in Las Vegas this last weekend. Police say the suspect had obviously planned the attack, visiting several music festivals in the area and stockpiling some 47 firearms in 3 different areas. While they still don't know what the suspect's motive was, investigators say they believe he was the only one responsible for the attack. Within a day, the debates over gun control, mental health, and security were raging once again across the country. And you want to talk about issues that we keep revisiting over and over again, mass shootings and gun control and security and mental health. We've all been there. We've all heard it throughout our adult lives. The one new thing that I have seen come out of this, in the last 24 hours, the NRA has has said that it is willing, that it thinks it's time for the president's administration to complete a review of the policies regarding bump stocks, the piece of plastic that can turn a rifle into what appears to be an automatic. Does this change the game as far as the debate over gun control and what happens next? Travis, let's start with you.
I don't think it changes it drastically. 20 dead children in a previous shooting didn't move the needle at all, so I don't know that this changes much of anything yet. We'll see. Time will tell.
This is a tragedy, but the one thing you have to recognize, this shooter passed every background check. So no amount of background checks would have prevented this. I do think, I'm glad to see the NRA move towards supporting that shift on the regulation. But this is a constitutional right, and so you're balancing security versus rights, and whether it's a slippery slope when you start restricting people's rights.
No.
But that's really the question, because no amount of gun control, no legislation, no sticker on a door is going to prevent someone with mental problems or a criminal who is committed from committing a crime. And so that's really where I think if we're going to really discuss and focus the efforts, it's got to be on mental health, it's got to be on treatment, it's got to be on that dynamic, not on trying to change gun background checks, because that's not going to stop this.
Yeah. One of the things I've been hearing, though, is that if you want to talk mental health, great, let's talk mental health. We've been cutting budgets both federally and at the state level for years.
We had a vote where we could have expanded mental health insurance to people who couldn't afford it. Right now we have some police stations in our state, and they are going out and serving those in a mental crisis by having to arrest them and serve them that way, instead of allowing these people to have access to health care so that they can go and seek the treatment that they need, which I think is a tragedy as well.
Pilar, if I can take this full circle towards the beginning of the show, okay? We're sitting here with a $600 million potential now deficit for more school funding. You've got mental health needs here.
Yeah.
So do we now have to give more money to the schools? Or can we maybe instead look at, let's give some money to mental health. Let's give some money to hospitals.
Medicaid expansion was
Here you go. I mean, this is the debate.
I've got to say, that's what the public has hired you guys to figure out. And we'll all be watching the next few months to see what you come up with. And thank you guys so much. Thank you guys so much for joining. It's been an incredible conversation, some very good points made. I hope to see you all here again. And thank you as well. The conversation doesn't have to end here. You can join us on Twitter and let us know what you think. Just look for me at Pilar Pedraza TV or at KPTS. For now, have a great week.